Welcome back, everyone, to week 4 of Apex Legends. Well, the 4th week of this season, the 3rd week that we're able to play due to some cancellations with snow. We are here on E-District, the newest map in the game, one of the best for competitive play, so we should see some fun matches here today. We can take a look at what our teams are picking as we begin to load in.
Alright, choose launch solo mode and left control. I'd say you land somewhere like over there looks fun. You heard that. I'm gonna land I forget where I land.
Land here. Unless you don't want to survive over there.
If we take a look at the map, we can see where we've got some folks heading here. Looks like we might see a contest right off the rip between Barberton 2 and Middletown 2. Let's watch that for a minute here, see what we can see.
Close enough to where I'm uncomfortable by it, though. They're running to me! Nope. Oh, God.
Looks like our teams are right on top of one another, so we will be seeing some action here probably.
I spy an enemy.
Barberton with the quick knock here on Middletown. They get the finish as the duo.
I am not alone. I think I'm safe now, but I was not alone on drop.
Oh, some unfortunate bracelet placement. Fortunately, she's got a backup. The Loba's going to choose to get out of there. Conduit, meanwhile, putting down some good damage onto our Barberton team here. Manages to get one knock with only her shields cracked, and of course, as Conduit, she's going to be able to heal that up pretty easily. Looks like our other Barberton player is actually going to run into the Loba, who we thought was escaping. He's going to take the cannon. Maybe giving chase here. Let's take a look and see what else is happening in the lobby. Looks like we've got Akron and Sanex 2 getting into it a little bit over here.
Since I'm Loba, we get a mobile respawn behind the banner.
Got company out there.
One fully finished, one knocked on Sanex. If we take a look at their third, he has already run for it. He's going for the craft. Ooh, unfortunately a little bit early, so he's only going to get one banner off of there. But hey, he's got one teammate he can possibly get back in. Nobody around him, so he's probably going to at least get the reset on that one. Meanwhile, Springfield and Middletown 1 here running into each other right here in the center of the map. Some good flesh damage going down here between our Revenant and our poor Watson running away. They managed to get the full finish on the Watson. Their support is knocked, but Horizon, it looks like, is going to go ahead and get out, so they're going to be looking for a reset as well. Meanwhile, it looks like Goshen almost on top of Sanex 1 here, coming through the gap.
If you throw in front of a door and then run, they can't go through the door because they're slow.
Sanex clearly knows he's there.
That's just something to keep in mind.
Whether they realize that it's a solo or not. Goshen, it looks like, about to run into a whole other team on the other side of the center here. Playing as a duo here. It looks like they were going for sort of a divide and conquer strategy, but they are currently just being conquered. That last remaining Goshen player is getting perhaps run down by East Canton. Let's take a look and see here. Barberton and Beaver Creek about to get into it, it looks like. We've got one fully finished on Beaver Creek. The Loba again running away. Loba as support with those double bracelets, very hard to catch, very good at getting out, and then of course being able to craft banners and res. Crucial for those game resets.
Oh, I messed it up. Oh, well.
Barberton, it looks like, giving up the chase, letting Beaver Creek get away. Meanwhile, it looks like we've got St. X here right on top of Brookside High School. Brookside takes the zip out. Some shots coming out from St. X.
Where's it at?
St. X with the triple controller comp here. Going to be very hard to push if they get set up. The Watson gen comes out. We've got some fences. Yeah, I don't think Brookside even really wants to push that, even if they wanted to. Running into those walls, those barrels, those fences. So they're just going to run away. You can have it, they say. You can stay there for all we care. Looks like Ohio Distance Learning Academy here being forced to split up a bit. I think they ran into East Canton, and now they're kind of running in two different directions. East Canton, it does seem like, has spotted one of them, so they're going to try and give chase. From chasing the split solo of Goshen to chasing the split solo here of OH Stella. They're going to take the Valcult, and that is just going to be just straight down. Looks like, actually, fortunately, they actually ran into Barberton. So Ohio Distance Learning Academy, that solo, lucky, not so lucky, runs into a whole other team, which scares off East Canton, who now Barberton won, chasing the solo there. East Canton chasing the other solo. Speaking of solos getting chased, it looks like Shaker Heights here running down one of these Goshen High School solos. He tries to get out with those Loba bracelets. Let's see if we have any other action going down here. Looks like Middletown putting down some good damage here onto Shaw. We've got the Crypto who's rushing out, looking to get a reset. Seems like they're going to let him go. Let's take a look here. We may have a full 3v3 fight going down here. It looks like we've got Troy High School versus Shaker Heights.
That zone is not my favorite. Enemy.
Some pokes coming out here with the triple take from Troy. Shaker Heights going to rotate here through the big fan. Troy looks like they're thinking about following, maybe considering it. Looks like teams are a little bit shy of getting into things too early here. We may see some action. Looks like Shaw, that solo Crypto, does manage to get a reset here, but right on top of them, we've got St. X2 and Springfield. Almost certainly going to run into each other here as they try and rotate into zone.
And there's a body.
Looks like St. X is well aware of Springfield, but Springfield does not seem to know they're there.
I might be able to TP through this. You might be out of luck though.
Hostile spotted.
St. X slowly creeping along here. Meanwhile, what is Shaw doing? Shaw also kind of creeping along behind them. So looks like Shaw's looking to kind of counter-rotate a little bit here. They could potentially mirror St. X and just pin them between Springfield and Shaw, but instead they pull back a little bit. St. X still playing Metal Gear Solid over here, sneaking their way into zone. Shaw High School now does decide to go for the mirror, so following in the footsteps of St. X. St. X seemingly still unaware that Shaw is outside of their current position.
That's going to be huge.
Looks like we've got some fights happening right now, actually. Let's take a look here. We've got Springfield right on top of Akron STEM High School. The Sheila comes out. We saw a lot of Rampart play here in ALGS just recently. Pretty strong legend in the meta. Sheila, just the insane ability to output damage. They managed to get one onto the lifeline here. Gonna go down. Pretty good damage attempt here by the Watson, but just a little too low. And then their last player here, this Horizon, also very low. Unfortunately, not in a great spot health-wise. It does get finished off, so that's going to be Springfield eliminated. Meanwhile, it is about to be a bit of a bloodbath here. We've got Shaw pushing in right on top of Akron Stem there. Right near them, we've got Shaker Heights, Middletown, all jostling for this same sort of building control here. Let's take a look and see. Our next zone is going to pull a little bit more to the north. If we take a look at the zone after that, it's going to continue to concentrate. So most of the teams here out on the edge. For the next zone, we've only got 2 squads in there. Let's take a look at this fight here. Middletown looking for some hits here. The Horizon ult comes out, pulling them in, doing a good amount of damage. Revenant's going to be one shot. Meanwhile, pushing them from behind, it looks like we've got Mad Maggie doing some very good damage. Almost as a solo, taking out 2 here. And this now puts Akron in a very tough spot, and Akron is eliminated. They had a pretty strong advantage right at the start of that fight, but that Maggie was able to turn it around. Meanwhile, it looks like Middletown 2 and Saint X 2 getting into it here. Saint X with 1 fully finished and 1 knocked, going for the res now. Middletown also with 1 knocked currently.
If I res you, I'm dipping.
They run right into each other.
Oh, he just res right next to us.
Good damage coming out from the Loba here. Manages to knock 1. That Bloodhound on Saint X is going to try and play quiet, see if he can take zone a little bit. This zone 3 is going to be a little bit of a tough one. They all got to get to zone, but in the meantime, they're going to pause to try and put some shots down onto that Bloodhound. Let's see who else is running into each other as they go into zone. Troy High School putting down some shots here. We've got Shaw High School right on top of them as well. Middletown 1 in the mix. Everybody trying to force their way through this small double choke here. We're definitely going to see some fights happening. Looks like we've got about 4 teams right on top of each other. Revenant leaping in, just barely making it in before the knock goes down. Not going to do him much good. He's going to get pretty quickly finished. We've got the Fuse ult coming out.
Actually, if you can get a kill, that'd be huge.
Troy in a pretty good spot here. Middletown with that 1 knock onto the Revenant. The other 2 alive, getting a spot down here at the bottom. If we take a look at the map, we're going to see it's going to continue to pull up here. Let's take a look at the teams that are fighting in zone for just a second here. Looks like we've got Shaker Heights fighting them here on the same building is going to be Brookside. Whichever team comes out on top for this one is going to be in a pretty good spot for the end game. Meanwhile, let's look at this giant pileup here. Shaw High School putting down some shots.
This is why I told you I'd be impressed with you.
Goshen High School looks like actually split up, playing again 2 solos here. A duo that is really 2 solos. Middletown, 1 knocked, but they're holding a pretty good amount of space here over on this far west side of the zone. They're going to be forced to leave that conduit behind, unfortunately. Who is going to get full finished. They're going to go ahead and rotate. Troy High School, it looks like, is the one coming out most on top of this fight. They kind of won this side of the zone. Unfortunately, it's not going to do them a lot of good. They've got to get out of here. 5 seconds till we start to get our round 4 closing.
Oh my god, I think I'm in zone with this. I am.
If we take a look at positioning of teams here, as this zone starts to close, looks like we've got St. X and Beaver Creek fighting over here for this teeny tiny spot. May not even be in the next round here. Goshen High School going for those rat plays, hiding out in the bus. Middletown almost right on top of them, looking for a reset on their conduit. Meanwhile, Middletown finds the last remaining Ohio Distance Learning Academy player. Even though the zone's coming, they're going to push this, hoping to get some KP here right at the end. Middletown 2 gets their conduit back in the game. She's going to be dropping. Unfortunately, their lifeline overextends just a little bit. It's going to take just too much zone damage, and I don't think they even get her back here. She's a little too far out there. Going to be, unfortunately, flying right into St. X1. Middletown 2 eliminated. Right at the same time, the rat is found in the bus. Goshen is eliminated by Middletown as well. Middletown 1 still in it. St. X1 still in it. Holding this last remaining bit of height on the bridge here, we've got Warren G. Harding. Haven't seen much of them in this game, but as a duo here, holding a pretty good spot as the zone starts to close. Shaw High School over here, far on the west. They have a good amount of space. They've got some pretty good evo. They're not in a terrible position here. It's just going to depend on what happens when the zone starts to close. Lots of teams that could potentially hold them out. Troy High School, it looks like we've got a solo here, trying to play small, trying to play quiet. It's not going to work, unfortunately. Going to take quite a few shots getting in. Still alive. Manages to get just outside of angles. Ooh, they might have an angle on him here, though. Let's take a look and see. Going to play quiet. Going to play the hiding game. Going for some positioning. It only takes one, especially with health that low. Let's jump to some of these fights that are happening. Shaw High School, as our zone begins to close, going to have to start walking in. Again, not a terrible side of the zone here. They've got most of this under control. Really, it's going to depend on if these other teams start fighting. St. X here. Kind of a tougher rotate. They've got teams blocking them out in almost every direct path, and they're going to be running right into Shaw. Shaker Heights High School playing low here. They are not going to be in this spot. That zone definitely hurts as they look for any possible spot. Got a moment to breathe here up on top. And is this fence going to be in? It looks like it might be. This could be a pretty good spot, actually, for Shaker Heights if they're able to control it. They are in there. St. X, actually, it looks like playing the low ground underneath them. Warren G. Harding holding down this middle area here. Unfortunately, just insane angles everywhere for this particular spot. It's very difficult to hold, especially if you don't have any controller legends, anybody to give you walls. Middletown and Shaw, meanwhile, getting into it here out on the edge of zone. Zen, our Maggie, putting down some really great damage here. Managed to get the knock and the full finish onto their Crypto. Leading the charge, Zen pushing in, going for a very aggressive fight here. And they managed to get it. Shaw is eliminated. Unfortunately, they're going to have to go for a quick reset here because there are other squads and the zone is not going to last much longer. Meanwhile, St. X and Shaw still on, or sorry, St. X and Shaker Heights still on top of one another. Taking some pokes here and there. These two teams are definitely going to have to look at each other as things close. Troy High School, meanwhile, sees them down on the bottom here. Maybe looking to get a little bit aggressive. Middletown actually manages, it looks like, to take the height, I believe. Middletown, yeah, now in control of this bridge. They're going to have a pretty good vantage point. They somehow managed to push off Troy, who's now on the low ground. Let's take a look at this pile up here. Looks like we've got multiple knocks here. Shaker Heights with one left. Not much playable area here. Warren G. Harding as they push their way in. St. X looks like has been taken out. We've got Troy and Middletown fighting here. Troy, 2 knocked. Going for an armor swap, doesn't manage to find it. And unfortunately, that's going to be it for Troy. Looks like we're down to our final two. Our Maggie, Zen here for Middletown, our last one alive. A very good player. We've definitely seen some good damage, some good kills, almost full squad wipes from them. They are going to be in a 1v1 here, it looks like, with Warren G. Harding. AO killer here on Valk. Let's watch this 1v1. The Valk manages to get the armor swap. Zen plays the knockdown shields here. Maggie does have, puts down the drill, has some flesh damage, does have an armor swap, and that's going to be it as a solo there at the very end. Zen is going to win it for Middletown in game number 1. Congratulations. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with scores. We're going to take a short break as well before we run our second match. A quick check-in, we can take a look at the leaderboard after this first match for the week. Middletown soaring into first place with a huge 34 points, followed in a not too close second by Warren G. Harding on 16 and Troy High School on 12. Fairly low-scoring game for our first match. We could see a lot of teams playing as solos, a lot of teams playing as duos, playing split. We have a lot of teams who are a little bit reluctant to get into those fights on this week. We'll be back in just a minute with the second lobby. Welcome back to our third week of matches, our fourth overall week here in Esports Ohio, as we get ready to drop again on E-District. Let's take a look and see what team comps are going to come out.
Why the music just stop?
Looks like we've got a couple Rampart picks here.
Yeah, I got you.
Quite a few supports again, lots of lifelines, lots of folks looking for those mid-fight resets. Lots of Lobas, escape artist as well. We've got a couple Newcastles coming out. Very high skill ceiling legend, pretty popular in the competitive meta, a little bit tougher to take advantage of in these Esports Ohio matches. With that, we get ready to launch again.
This one.
Reckon we ought to land over there, dears.
Alright, peace, man. Middle of the map. Let's go. Oh, no, you will see me. I am 99% Ryan off of it.
Let's check out over there, mates.
I'm out of ammo.
Watch yourself.
Lots of fights happening right here off the rip. Akron Stem lands right on top of Saint X1.
There's a baddie.
Trying to put down some early damage. Saint X putting down that same damage. They managed to get the first knock here.
Over there. Contact with hostile. Make contact with enemy. Hostile close. Contact with hostile. Hostile close. We scratch, dear.
Attention, Evo.
Stop moving. They're above you. Yeah.
Akron manages to fend them off and get the reset. Let's take a look at any other fights that might be happening. Teams mostly staying apart here. Looks like actually we've got one of Goshen here. Actually a solo already. Looks like our other player already finished here. We're going to have Lifeline trying to play quiet here while Troy loots right on top of him. Meanwhile, Shaw and Warren G. Harding getting into it here. The Bloodhound here taking some decent damage on Shaw, managing to get healed up though. Warren G. Harding playing as a duo versus the trio here for Shaw, also at an armor disadvantage a little bit.
No.
Warren G. Harding looking to run away. Shaw going to aggressively push this. It's a 3v2, blues versus whites. You take that fight any day. They managed to get one knock here onto the Lifeline. Going for the finish. Oh, just not. That's just, you hate to see it.
No. You just dropped.
Alternator here.
Meanwhile, it looks like that Valk taking advantage of her mobility, going to work to get out. She's already almost a POI away. Looking to get that reset.
Touchdown and fuel.
Nobody else quite getting into it, although it looks like Saint X2 here once again running into one of these Ohio Distance Learning Academy solos. Looks like their Octane already unfortunately taken out. In much the same situation here, looks like Ohio Distance Learning Academy and Goshen maybe sharing the same playbook here, where we're running as a duo, but we're playing as a solo. And unfortunately, in this case, Ohio Distance Learning Academy is going to be eliminated as they run into Saint X. Let's take a look at where the next zone is going to go here as it closes. Looks like it's going to be pulling over here, over towards City Hall, over towards Resort, Boardwalk.
They might be the other team.
We've got some fighting happening here. Barberton on Barberton violence. You hate to see it. Barberton 1 versus Barberton 2. Barberton 1 as a trio, full blue armors. Barberton 2, one knocked already. They are on white armor as well. And unfortunately, they just take them out. You can't take, 3v2 with an armor advantage as well. And Barberton 1's going to eliminate their fellow Barberton high schooler. Brookside, meanwhile, looks like rotating in here. They maybe hear those shots, maybe looking to potentially push an advantage. Already on purples, at least for their Gibby. Looks like, speaking of school-on-school violence here, Middletown 1 and Middletown 2 on top of one another, getting shots down. While we can see these players, unfortunately, for them, they do not know who they are fighting. With the anonymous mode here.
Target spotted.
Middletown 2 going to be running away. Middletown 1 going to be pushing.
We're back, boys.
Target's right in front of me.
Looks like that fight cools off just a little bit. Oh, and it heats back up again. A nice sniper shot, and then a quick push here. And that's going to be Zen again getting the final finish there. Although I think helped out a little bit by his teammate. Yeah, looks like that was a nice shot by their Rampart here. 1 CT, 2C. Not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but with the Sentinel shot, he manages to get that early entry damage, and they take one. Meanwhile, Troy, it looks like, coming up pretty closely here.
Enemy spotted.
Troy, meanwhile, pushing over here to the solo duos, the two-player team here of Goshen, a little bit closer than they were in previous matches.
Is it solo?
Trying to play a little bit quiet, maybe hoping to
Oh my god.
get some damage here. The lifeline's going to get taken out. The Maggie still a little aggressive, pushing up here. Looks like Troy now running immediately into Middletown. So Goshen manages to run away. Troy rotating into zone actually runs immediately into Middletown. And Middletown knocks 1, Middletown knocks 2, and that is the elimination onto Troy High School. Unfortunate timing there as they fight the duo squad and then finally the solo for Goshen, who manages to get away in the chaos. Meanwhile, the poor lifeline here just crawling away. Finish me, finish me. Shaker Heights here, holding with East Canton right beside as a solo.
That's what matters.
Let's see if we've got any other teams running into one another. Looks like we're about to see some fighting break out here between Brookside, Shaw High School, and Barberton 1, as each of them sort of jockeys for position over here. Some interesting counter rotates coming out here. None of this is particularly great in the next zone, but they are fighting it still. Brookside High School manages to take the ultimate height on this building here in Neon Square. Shaw porting up top, taking this fight. Let's watch this. It looks like in the Gibby bubble, they managed to get off the Valk ult, so they're going to be able to fly away for Beaver Creek. Actually, no, Beaver Creek rotating in here. Beaver Creek just coincidentally, Brookside flying away. Shaw taking a few shots, just some pokes from Barberton 1. Barberton has a spot here for the next zone, just a little bit, kind of holding this edge. Let's see if anybody else is going to run into one another on their rotates. We're pretty spaced out here. Beaver Creek maybe a little bit close to Middletown, but depending on what direction they all look, they may not even realize they're there. Sanex and Shaw here, possibly about to look at one another. Let's take a look. The scan goes off there. Shaw High School is going to know that they have that team right on top of them.
I just shot better.
Enemy far. Don't let them slip away.
Trying to play a little aggressive here, maybe looking to pick up some KP here on the edge of zone. Shaw High School just absolutely running down.
Eliminate the enemy.
Trying to get to our Ash here. Looks like Saint X rotating away. Let's take a look at some of the other fights that are happening. While Sanex rotates, they're pulling them all directly up over here into this big fight where we've got Middletown 2, Akron, STEM, and then Middletown 1 actually about to get into kind of the same area here. And in an absolutely just a tough fight there, looks like we've got our Middletown 1 who does manage to rotate in, lands right on top there. Manages to take out 2 from Middletown. Our final Middletown player rotates away, says, I don't want any part of that. Shaw High School, meanwhile, getting into it here with Sanex 1. Shaw with the armor advantage. Manages to get that tether off. You love to see it. It's Ash. She doesn't have a lot of abilities. Let her use them, please. Some nice marksman shots coming out. Sanex looking to get this rotate off. Not able to get over the wall. As they fly here, taking some shots out of the air. Let's see who they're going to be landing on. Managed to actually find a somewhat isolated spot here. Meanwhile, Middletown 1 just kind of hunkering down for a moment, getting a reset. Springfield and Shaker Heights, meanwhile, looking at each other on the far side of the zone. They managed to get 1 knocked. The ult comes out, the res comes out. Double ulted, actually. We get both the Watson and the Lifeline ults for them to stabilize. They are definitely going to make it in here. Meanwhile, let's take a look. Looks like we've got Barberton, Brookside, and Middletown 2 possibly fighting for this mythic bin that we're about to see spawn. Barberton pushing forward, getting some shots down here onto the last remaining player from Middletown 2, who has just gotten off the res, manages to get both players in just as she is knocked. So we're going to see our Mirage and our Lifeline managing to land. Mirage, unfortunately, running right into the Gibby from that team. Lifeline going to have to find some place to lay low for a moment. She manages to pull back a little bit here. Barberton, meanwhile, holding down this building. Brookside High School taking a look at St. X. Do we have anybody else on top of one another here? Looks like Shaw and Middletown actually getting into it for a minute here. Middletown 1 taking this jump tower. They've got 1 knock, 1 full finish actually onto Shaw, who's looking to rotate away. Unfortunately, we may see them chase them down here. Let's take a look to see. They get the craft off. Don't see anybody flying in. They may be lucky enough to get this reset. Oh, I spoke a little bit too soon, perhaps. While they look to reset, they're getting looked at here by a couple different teams. Beaver Creek taking some shots. Middletown now rotating around. Shaw now flying over here onto Brookside.
Say we move this way.
Let's see where the action's going to be. Let's take a look at seeing what's happening in this Springfield versus Middletown fight. I'm not actually entirely sure that they realize that Middletown's under here. That's that solo here. Ooh, they're going to realize here in just a second, unfortunately, I think. They can see from outside. No, please don't. No, she says, don't come in here. I'm a full team, I promise. They're going to chase her down. No sympathy. Ooh, wisely hears the Loba bracelet there. Clearly knows that there's another team somewhere right over here on the side. Decides not to go for it. Looks like it was actually not entirely sure what they heard there. It looks like maybe it was this East Canton player who was a little too close. Ooh, and unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way back up from here, even if there wasn't a team shooting at you. That's going to be East Canton eliminated. Meanwhile, Middletown 1 and Beaver Creek getting into it here, right in the center of the zone. 10 seconds till the zone starts closing. Everybody's going to have to move here. This is our team that won last round. We've got our Maggie on Zen here. We've got our Rampart and our Lifeline. Beaver Creek, meanwhile, looking to get away. As a solo here. Their Octane's done. Unfortunately, I do think they know that she's there. It's actually Brookside who they happen to run into. It's getting pretty crowded out here. We don't have a lot of controller legends in the lobby. Beaver Creek is going to be eliminated. Without as many controller legends, this map's going to be pretty hard to hold down some spots on. Speaking of having a difficult time holding down a spot here, looks like Middletown 1 manages to get 2 full knocks here onto Middletown, just in time for them to be rezzed. Middletown 2, decides not to go for it. A little bit too much zone damage. Definitely was a bit tight. Unfortunately, does not manage to get in. Has to run from zone. Shaw, meanwhile, putting down some damage as they get into a fight here with Middletown. We saw in the last match, Middletown not afraid to play aggressive. They do manage to eliminate Shaw. Meanwhile, they start taking some shots from across the map here. We've got Springfield hunkered down. Not the worst spot in the world if it wasn't for the fact that it is kind of stuck on low ground here. We'll see what they're able to do with it. Meanwhile, Barberton holding down the building. This is going to be a pretty strong spot as the next ring closes. Brookside also with a pretty strong spot. Honestly, we've got Barberton, Middletown, and Brookside all scoping out spots in the ring. Springfield's really the only one who needs to find a home here as the zone's going to close. Looks like they managed to make their way in underneath, actually, of Barberton 1. Barberton hears them down there. Not a lot they can do from this angle. It's going to make things a little bit difficult when the final ring does start to close. And with that, I have a feeling we're probably going to see things stabilize a little bit. Unless these two teams decide that they want to fight it out before the zone closes, I have a feeling that none of these teams are going to move unless something forces them to. Barberton 1. Looks like we've got a double Sentinel and then our close range expert here on our Bangalore. Meanwhile, underneath them, we've got a triple take. Not a lot of long range options here for Springfield. Middletown. Looks like we've also got a Sentinel. L-Star. Really just a Sentinel. Not a lot of long range for this team as well. At this point, though, the long range is getting pretty short range as the zone starts to close. Meanwhile, oh my goodness here. We've got Saint X here. Have I entirely missed a team? Our 5th squad, we didn't even notice here as the zone starts to pick back up. They are setting up. They've got the triple controller comp. Trying to put down some really strong defense. Zen for Middletown getting a knock onto the strongest damage output legend onto their Rampart. Again, Middletown not afraid to play aggressively here. They've got 1 knock. They're going for the res. Difficult time pushing into the fences, the walls. And we've got some caustic barrels as well. Holding them off for the moment. Middletown outside. They've actually got 1 knocked as well in that fight. See if they're going to be able to get the res. Ooh, not quite in time, so they are going to be down a player unless they somehow manage to hit this beacon that's right in the middle of the zone. Crazier things have happened. Final round is starting to close. We've got 2 teams here, Brookside and Saint X, holding down this building. We've got Middletown trying to find a spot on the other side of zone. Barberton and Springfield still right on top of one another. They're going to have to look at each other most likely. Meanwhile, Barberton looking at Middletown. Getting some early picks, getting some snipes would be huge in this coming fight. All 5 of these teams are going to be right on top of each other. Not a lot of cover in this zone as it starts to close. If we take a look over here, you can see with this height, this is a pretty good spot. The only problem that they're going to run into here is, yep, they are instantly having to fight one another. Brookside High School now getting into it. One knocked on Brookside. Manages to get another knock. Unfortunately, though, eliminated Springfield High School, now in control of the height for a good portion here. They managed to get some good damage down. If they can manage to hold this height a little bit longer, it could be their game to win. These other teams are definitely going to have to fight one another. It looks like for Middletown, we do actually see they do manage to get that reset. Looks like Middletown for this final match is going to be a full 3-man, I believe. Yeah, if we take a look, this could be Middletown's game to win once again. They managed to get their last one up, and Middletown wins it. They managed to get their third one back again, playing from the low ground, and they take it in game number 2. That's going to give Middletown a pretty commanding lead for this week's overall scores. Congratulations. Before we end stream, we'll be back here in just a minute with our final scores for the week. Once again, these will be uploaded into League OS here shortly. And it is an absolutely huge week for Middletown 1, putting up a commanding 72 points, putting them at the top of the leaderboard, 48 eliminations. Barberton 1 close behind, but not very close behind, with 18 points overall, 12 eliminations. Really, Middletown 1 just running all over the map here, finding some good spots, finding some good positions. Zen getting in some great damage along with his teammates, not afraid to play aggressive on E-District, which is a map that can really reward that if you know where to go. St. X1 finishing in 3rd place for the week, followed by Warren G. Harding in 4th, Brookside in 5th, Troy High School will take 6th place, Springfield in 7th, Shaker Heights in 8th, Shaw High School in 9th, Akron STEM in 10th, Middletown 2 is going to take 11th place, Beaver Creek is going to take 12th for the week, Goshen High School is going to finish in 13th place, East Canton going to finish in 14th, St. X2 in 15th, Barberton 2 in 16th, and Ohio Distance Learning Academy in 17th. Good games overall to all of our legends. We will be back here again next week. Have a fantastic season, and we'll see you Wednesday.